Hey guys, what's up? Have you ever heard someone say that Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, or Mounjaro has stopped working for them? Or worse yet, that maybe they've damaged their GLP-1 receptors and maybe you just need to take a break and reset them? Yeah, I've heard that too. And this is where some fear comes in, especially when weight loss slows down, or stops, or plateaus, or stalls. But today I want to talk to you about the science that's going to debunk some of these myths. And I want to give you real answers based on science, what's happened with me as well from my own personal experience, because I have been on all the GLP-1s since September of 2022. So I'm knocking on the door of 3 years of being on a GLP-1. So I'm going to share my personal experience on that. So let's dive in. So let's start with some of the basics. GLP-1 medications, Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Mounjaro, semaglutide, tirzepatide. What they do is they're a hormone signaling peptide, right? They are a GLP-1, a glucagon-like peptide 1. And what this hormone does is it regulates your blood sugar levels, it delays stomach emptying, reduces your appetite. When you take a GLP-1 medication, you're getting the long-acting version of the GLP-1, right? Because we have natural GLP-1s in our bodies and they get triggered when we eat something, but they literally last 2 minutes. Whereas when we take the GLP-1 exogenously, it lasts about a week. That then leads to all of these amazing, wonderful things happening, and we are then able to lose weight. But here's the thing, they don't burn fat. They create the right conditions for us to be able to lose weight by reducing the appetite, having fewer cravings, increasing our insulin sensitivity, so the calorie partitioning goes to the right places versus before that, it's just going off to our fat cells. So let's tackle this big myth that GLPs stop working because they damage the receptors or they desensitize the receptors, because that's just not how it works. There is zero clinical evidence to indicate that a GLP-1 medication causes any long-term damage to your receptors. These medications have literally been studied for decades. So it's been about 20 years that it has been studied, initially for diabetes, now for obesity, and for folks that are overweight. And we see that they continue to work, and they're effective. They're just as effective over time, especially when used as prescribed and you don't cycle off and on the medication. Now, there is something called receptor downregulation that can happen in certain parts of the body with certain drugs, but that has not been shown in any way to occur or diminish weight loss effectiveness with GLP-1s. If it did, we would not see continued benefits, particularly in the SELECT or the Step 5 trial. People have shown to be on these medications in these trials for years, and they've been able to maintain their weight and all of the health benefits. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, plateaus, because that is what most people are actually experiencing when the medication has stopped working. The weight loss, of course, is never linear. It slows down, your body adapts. It's very normal in any weight loss, whether you're on a GLP-1 or you're not on a GLP-1. Very normal, happens all the time. Your metabolism will downshift, especially as your body decreases in size. You burn fewer calories, your ghrelin and your leptin hormones will shift, And if you don't adjust your habits, you don't adjust for food intake, calories, movement, hydration, strength training, you may hit a wall. But that's not the medication failing. That's biology doing exactly what it's designed to do, and it's to protect you from starving yourself and getting to a point where there's nothing more of you left. This is why we have to work with our bodies, not against them. This is why it is so important to build those habits alongside the medication, not just rely strictly on the shot. Now let's address another myth. Should you cycle off the GLP medication to give your receptors a break? And here's my short answer. No, do not do this. Not unless your doctor has a clear medical reason for you to do that. There is zero scientific benefit to cycling off. In fact, stopping the medication interrupts the therapeutic process. Your appetite signaling comes back online, your cravings will return, your insulin resistance might get worse, and your weight might start to creep back up. Unfortunately, the data shows that about 90% of people will regain most of their weight within about 2 years when they stop taking a GLP-1. Think about that. You've worked so hard to change your body, to change your metabolism, your relationship with food, and now you're off the GLP-1. You're trying to reset. Your brain is screaming now for sugar, and it's 10 p.m. at night, and you're just like craving something. That's not a reset. That is a rewind. Now, if you have reached maintenance, you may have built a really strong foundation of habits, and you're working really closely with your medical provider, and maybe you can taper off. Maybe you can spread out your titration, your dosing timing. Maybe you can do that in a slow and intentional process. However, let's be brutally honest with yourself on whether you're ready to do that. You have to be physically and mentally in the right place to be able to take on that process. And it has to feel good. So I'll give you an example. I have been on the highest doses of everything. So when I was on Wegovy, I was up to 2.4. When I switched over to Zepbound, I titrated all the way up to 15 milligrams. And some people are able to stay on a low dose and have great success. I was just one of those people that I just had to keep climbing up. I hit 15 milligrams, and then I was in maintenance, and I actually started feeling hungrier. And so I thought, oh, let me just try 12.5. Let me just go down a little bit. And I did. I went to 12.5, and that seemed really good for me. That just felt right. And I have not gone lower than that. People have asked me if I've tried, and no, I haven't. Why? I don't feel the need to. I still can eat a lot. I still can hit all my protein. I'm active, I have energy, I have all the things. What I don't have is crazy food noise or cravings. I'm able to adhere to all of my choices and my habits and my lifestyle, and it feels right. So why would I mess with a good thing? So yeah, I've been on 12.5 milligrams of Zepbound for over 2 years now, and it's just felt like the right thing for me. So I do not, unless something better comes along or something happens, I don't intend to move from that. I've played around with some, instead of doing it every 7 days, I've done 8, I've done 9, and I've done 10 days. I've tried splitting my dose. And at the end of the day, I keep coming back to 12.5 at 7 days because that feels like it works the best for me. But yeah, I've experimented a little bit within that 12.5 milligram dosing strategy. So you really need to make sure that when you hit maintenance, you really do the right thing for you. Don't, work with your provider, but make sure they're educated with that, because there really isn't any maintenance strategy that's designed for everyone, because it's very unique. It's a very unique, and we are in new territory that many people really haven't done before. The only thing that we know for sure is that the majority of people, again, 90% who go off of GLP-1, once they hit maintenance, regain the weight. There's only 5 to 10% of people that are able to maintain it effectively. And I have another video on who those people are and who, are you one of those people or are you not? And be honest with yourself if you are or not. I will link it as well in this video, because I think it's really important so that you don't feel like you're failing. If you're doing all the right things, you go off it and then your weight starts to creep up. It may not be you, it may be your biology. So what do you do when you have hit a stall? You're in a plateau. The scale just won't freaking budge. Okay, so I have some things that you can do that you really need to ask yourself. And again, it's called being brutally honest with yourself, because trust me, I wasn't always like this. I hid from my weight for years. In other videos, if you watched, I did not weigh myself for decades. Why? Because I was terrified of the number. That number, it is data, but I didn't want to see the number because it would really be the truth hitting me in the face saying, you need to lose weight, you're overweight. And I just didn't want to know. So I stuck my head in the sand. I wasn't ready to deal with it. And when I was finally ready to deal with it, I did finally weigh myself. And then I said to myself, all right, you need to disengage your emotions from the scale. Use it as a data point. Use it to measure what you're doing well or what maybe you're not doing so well. And we all, I think, really need to try and do that. It's the only way of being able to track and know and reflect and figure out how we're gonna fix a stall or plateau. So, are you tracking your food? Are you getting in enough protein? Look, if you're not tracking your food, you have no data to go back to. You will have no idea if food has creeped back in, calories have creeped back in, whether you're in a stall, you're in maintenance mode, you start gaining weight, or you're not losing weight. If you don't track and you don't know how many calories you're getting, or if you're hitting your protein target, you don't know what to manipulate. You may be way over consuming on calories, way under consuming on protein, but if you're not tracking, you don't have a clue. So I implore you, really try and disengage emotions from tracking. And I used to think tracking was like really hard to do, and then I started doing it again, and these days, it's not pen and paper. It's so much easier. And when I started tracking, I'm like, oh my God, this is so easy. All I do is have an app. And when you eat, most of the foods are the same because you're not eating something different on every single meal. You're pretty much eating similar types of foods. It's copy paste, swipe it over. It literally takes seconds to put it into your tracker. And it becomes habit. And it becomes like a safety net, because let's say the scale goes up, but you know for sure that you are hitting your calories and your macros. Well, what I do is I tell myself, well, it must be like some sort of fluid fluctuation, or maybe I had a tremendous amount of salt or whatever, because I know that overnight I'm not going to gain 2 pounds of fat. So I can walk myself off that ledge and I can be okay with it. But again, if you're not tracking, you're not going to have a clue. So, are you getting enough protein? Are you tracking your food? Are you moving your body regularly? Again, another tracking. I track my steps, not as a punishment, but just as an achievement, because my goal is 10,000 minimum steps a day. And there was a time when I tracked steps years ago, and I remember looking at it and it was like 2,500 in a day. And I went, I know that's not good. And I'm sitting on my butt a lot. And when you start to track and you just it becomes a habit and you just start moving more, and that's what's happened to me, then all of a sudden I'm just moving more. And I don't really have to be as intentional about it. I'm very intentional, but then so now not only do I get 10,000 steps, I have probably been averaging about 15,000, but it's not intentional. The intentional is 10,000. And then I'm getting in like, I don't know, 5,000 more steps when I'm in work meetings and I'm on my tread pad, or I'm just pacing, or I'm on the phone. I really try to make it a habit of moving when I'm having a phone call with somebody, or I'm outside walking the dogs or whatever. And before you know it, you're just moving a lot more. So that could be another reason why you're stalling, is you're just not moving that much, not moving your body. A third point would be your sleep and your stress. Those are huge. So really look at yourself and go, am I sleeping well? Am I consistent with my sleep habits? Am I getting good sleep? If you're not, that 100% could be creating a weight loss stall or increasing your weight. And the same holds true with stress. Consistent chronic stress, I think we know this now. I mean, it's a killer. Mentally, emotionally, physically, find ways to manage or mitigate your stress. One of the things that I do is physical activity. Again, and it's known, and it's been in research that physical activity helps to mitigate and lower your stress levels and your anxiety levels. And that is the number one reason why I am so active. The side benefit, or the repercussion of that is like, getting muscles and getting stronger, but that immediate effect, that happens right away. The day of my workout, if I'm feeling stressed or I have anxiety, I'm like, I'm gonna go lift weights. I'm gonna go take it out on my weights. I'm gonna go do some pull-ups, and I always feel better. And I've never come out of lifting weights or taking a walk going, I shouldn't have done that, I feel bad. It's never happened. I always feel better. So really assess those habits for yourself, and what are ways that you can implement to mitigate your stress and anxiety, and be intentional. It might be something other than physical. It could be something that's more creative. Just getting outside, being in nature has shown to really lower those stress levels, which lowers the cortisol levels, which will help with your weight loss. And then finally, your habits in general. Have you noticed if they've been slipping? Have you just been not as on target with certain things? And then maybe you need to kind of dial that back in. Because if you're still doing all the right things and things have slowed down, it's not a failure. It's called maintenance. You're now in maintenance mode. Your body has adjusted to a new set point, and sometimes you will just need to ride it out before the next drop happens. And if you haven't been consistent with your habits, that's an opportunity. So look at it as an opportunity to go, I can do something. I can fix something. So don't blame the medication, just tighten up your plan. So here's what I want you to take away from this video to kind of sum it up. GLP-1 medications do not stop working. They do not damage your receptors, and you do not need to cycle off the medication to reset your system, but they do need to be supported with the right lifestyle, nutrition, movement, mindset, and most of all, consistency. This is a long game. You do not get there overnight. You didn't put the weight on overnight. You're not gonna reverse this thing overnight. Patience is definitely not something that I have a lot of in certain cases, and I have had to learn to be patient with myself. So trust me, I am not the most patient person when I want something and I put my mind to it. And I know a lot of you are like that too. You're like, all right, I made a decision. I'm going to get there. I want this to happen. It's been a month. What's going on? How come I'm not getting there? You know, it's going to take patience, and you're going to have to just be consistent and look at other non-scale victories, as they call it, right? Look at how is your energy? How is your sleep? How is your mindset? Are you making the right decisions? Are you, moving away from some of the toxic behavior that you had in the past? And you know what those are. You need to be able to reflect back and just kind of course correct on some of those things, because your health is still improving. Your inflammation's going down, your blood sugar levels are stabilizing, your clothes are probably fitting differently, your mindset and you're thinking more clearly now. And most of all, you're showing up differently for yourself than you ever had before. That's progress. That is more important than any number on the scale. If you found this video helpful, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up, comment, let me know what your thoughts are. How do you feel? Where's your progress? What do you think about, have you ever cycled off? What were the repercussions of that? The vast majority of people that I have seen that have done that have not had anything positive. Are there some anomalies out there? Sure. If you're an anomaly, I would love to hear from you in the comments. But also, if you have tried cycling off and it didn't work, comment as well. We can all learn from each other. Hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber, and I will see you in my next video. Stay strong.